new designs in port development is an all-inclusive waterfront to bring the people back to the water in the city and bring the water back to the people. Most ports have been, as you operate now, a closed site, which does not allow the public to interact at all with any of the developments within those. The most recent pier we finished in Falmouth, Jamaica is operating very well as an open site. However, they do currently have a secondary security zone where they actually still have a wall. We plan not to have a wall here. We don't have the same security concerns that they have in Jamaica. So we'll come back to this, but this shows you essentially the layout. Next is the transportation plan. We're trying to minimize the amount of traffic in and out of the city and into and out of the site. So in very short terms here, the red is showing you coming into the site. There's a drop-off around this roundabout here, which we call VIP drop-off, and I'll explain that in a minute. There's also the bus and taxi drop-off, which you see in the red line here. We've created a double boulevard, which we'll show you later in the slides here how that works. There's 4 lanes of traffic that travel by the site and come back out and then can enter back into the circulation of the city. The green path shows you a green full-time, so there's never obstruction of traffic. There's a parking lot also proposed that's on the government parcel here, which we call 4 West, which will accommodate up to between 300 and 600 cars when it's built into a deck. So there's a large parking room here as well. When guests leave the ship, there's 3 types of guests that we're dealing with. When guests leave, and this could be as many as 3,000 in the morning, starting between 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock. Land-based, which comes this way. Marine-based, which comes this way. And the independent traveler that travels through the terminal building. The idea is that we allow them to make decision points very quickly. On the west berth, there's a ship kiosk here that's dedicated to the ship that's on the west berth. That kiosk will be their short X opportunity to explain to their guests where they're going, why they're going, and it's their first opportunity to give information to the guest once they've disembarked the ship. On the east side, there's the east berth kiosk, and that's a 10 by 10 kiosk. That represents the ship that's not shown on the drawing that would be on the east berth. So there's their first decision point when they come in. Independent travelers, which are actually growing in number, due to everybody carrying an iPhone and an iPad, they've got access to all type of internet. You know, before you bought what was on your bed. You bought the onboard media or the PP, the production stuff that was put on your beds and your cabins. Well, now guests, when they come into a port, the first thing they do is they go to their iPhones, they go to their iPads, they find out what's available, where they want to go that day. So the independent traveler is becoming much more important component of the cruise industry. In the terminal building here, that's where we facilitate all of those independent travelers. Due to the volume in the morning, about 1,500 people are going to go on the marine highway, and about 1,500 people are going to go along land-based. Now, for your numbers here, and y'all may have some numbers within the taxi association and within the transportation numbers you have on the island, that probably exceeds any of the days that you currently have. So again, about 3,000 people in the morning will disembark in the first 2 hours. Those 3,000 people will probably be split evenly amongst land-based travelers and marine-based travelers. Independent travelers haven't made up their mind yet. They usually, again, kind of mirror that same 50-50 split. Next. Guest services. Talking about VVI tourism, transportation, and the dispatcher. Inside of the terminal building, there's going to be a guest services counter. That guest services counter is actually going to be manned by 3 persons all the time that the ship's in port. The Pier-Park guest services counter will actually allow them to get VVI information, it'll get tourism information, transportation information, and guest services from the port. So that is their second decision point. If the person has not made up their mind whether they'd like to travel independently, if they're looking for a taxi, if they're looking for a boat, maybe that they want to go to a site that they found on their internet or on their phone, that's where they would make that decision. Independent travelers then exit out into the village in front of the terminal building, whereas those that have pre-purchased walk simply to where the taxi staging area is, or they walk to the marine staging area, and there's 2 areas for them to load onto the marine highway. So there will be a lot more marine traffic in the future possibly than there is today. The building itself is about 6,000 square feet on the ground plan. It has restrooms, it has the office for the Port Authority, it has some retail, limited retail, but essentially what's in the center of this facility is going to be that guest services location. Anything they need to understand about what's going on in the BVI will be told to them inside that building. So much like a traditional train station, there'll be a departures board, there'll be information that's up. So just like arriving at a train station, it's going to start to tell you where you go, or an airport. It'll have changing menu boards, it'll have destination times, it'll have tour times, and there'll be some advertising. There'll be some opportunities to promote independent tours in there as well. Okay. Guests coming back. First thing is they're coming back from the sister islands or coming back from day boats. They walk down and they come back to this building, which is shown here as a customs house. The reason that we do this, commerce happens when people move from point A to point B. If people don't move from point A to point B, no commerce happens. That's what commerce and trade is. The traditional ways of dispersing and bringing people back to the boats, for example, in many cases, we used to drop them off right back here. What happens when we drop them off right here at the pier? Where do they go?
Straight back to the ship.
Absolutely. Come back right before lunch, where are they headed? Back to the ship. Why do we put them down here?
We want to go through the shopping area.
And they get exposed to every buying opportunity that they have before they ever get back to the ship. We've done studies that show 80% of the people that enter here will stay, visit, and spend money within the complex, and or in your case, actually go into the city. We drop them off there, they get right back on the boat. And what happens? 60% of those people never get back off the boat. So we're looking at doing a capture rate here of 85% of the people on board. Currently, many ships in what we call secondary ports of call, only 35% of the people even get off the ship. Now that's happened over the years. When people don't feel like they're getting a better service on land than they are on board the ship, and they've made these ships like resort hotels. It's hard to lure people off the ships. The reason we do things like this and create these villages is when they walk on their balcony or on that deck and they look down, what do they see? What do they see today? They see a parking lot. What they'll see in the future, we hope, is road time, and they'll come down into the city. We just finished the Falmouth project. 85% of Royal Caribbean's guests are getting off their ships in Falmouth, compared to 45% getting off in Ocho Rios and 30% getting off in Montego Bay. Why? Because when they come into the ship, they look down, they see a big energy, they see an activity zone, and an area where they know they can get off the ship and walk around. Big difference from the old traditional ports that we converted from old commercial piers, where they look down, they see warehouses and tank farms and concrete deck. So that's part of the reason when they come back, we want them to come here. Let's go to the next slide, please. Now, returning guests coming from the city. VIP guests and returning guests. This roundabout here is controlled because we now will have what we call high-value tour excursions. High-value tour excursions occur when the type of ships that we're bringing now in are these A-class ships. The A-class ships have an average ticket price of $2,000 per person. In the past, y'all have been dealing with ships that have passengers that are paying $399 per person. The demographics of the new ships, the 4,000 passenger ships, match those of the yachting community and the boating community that the BVI has enjoyed for the last number of years. So your demographics of your guests that are getting off of these ships have 3 times the spending potential of the guests that currently come on a ship to the BVI. So your spending power is much higher. To do that, some tours have to be elevated in price and luxury. The accommodations, the types of vehicles you use, the types of tour pricing that's done, those are the high-end tour packages that will be offered an opportunity to drop off right here on this roundabout. All of your conventional tours, or the standard tour package, will make a turn here, and they'll draw along this line here, and they'll have 2 taxi drop-off points. One here by the open green space, and one here by the village with a roadway into the port. We believe this will probably be mostly independent drop-offs, and this will probably be most pre-sold and pre-arranged tour drop-off. But again, what does it do? It allows the guests to filter back through the village before they get back to the pier. Same thing here in the green space. They can come into the green space, filter into the port, and then go back to the pier. So it creates an opportunity to spend money in commerce. VIP tours, there's 3 types of tour products that would drop off in here, and these would be decaled. The project, the way that we look at it is you will have decals that will tell certain operators where they can and can't drop off. Those decals will allow the VIP tour services done by specialty tours, government access, or cruise line VIP would drop off here. The guests would then get off. What you see here is a little trolley line. We'll show you where that trolley runs throughout the project. So this will be the VIP drop-off.
Hold on a minute. Sam, I only need one meeting. You want to step out a minute so you can come back?
No, my meeting is going on.
One meeting.
The meeting that's on part of right now.
No, I'm saying, but you're talking on the phone.
Yeah, but this is one somebody was asking about this meeting.
Yeah,
He's
well,
trying to make
okay,
it.
let's
I'm giving
pause
him
for you
direction.
and then until you finish.
Yeah, no, but they coming. They getting the direction.
All right.
So this is the first point of entry. Elisa, let's go to the next one. This is where you'd get out, and this is the view that you'd have when you got out. Now you'd look back, you see the ship in the background. There's the trolley path. So you've now just gotten off of that VIP entrance. There's the green space on one side, the warehousing and the retail street leading back, and there's the terminal building at the end. Tour dispatch, pre-bought tours. There are 2 kiosks. The guests who already have a pre-bought tour, they go to what we call stations. On your ticket pass, it'll tell you what the station number is. And again, with so many people that we're developing now with these, with 8,000 passengers per day, you can no longer walk around with paddles or notebooks or pieces of paper or cardboard signs. Each station will have a permanent sign. I'm going to show you a picture of one in a minute. The guests will already know on their tour ticket, you go to station 1, station 2, station 3, station 4. And when they get there, that station will be for their tour. It'll have the name of the tour and also the station number. Different ships will have different stations. So one of the things that the Taxi Association and the transportation providers need to understand is one ship's going to have a certain net number of stations and the other ship might have a different buying pattern. So that those signs can change. So the signs aren't permanent. They're in core drills. The signs come out of the pavement. We take them back inside, put out the new signs for the next boat. So because different days, those signs and those station numbers will change from time to time. Independent travelers walk into the terminal building. They may decide they want to go on a marine tour. They may decide